Mukesh Ambani making it clear that they would like to position India as a world leader in green as well as clean technology. Gagan, on the back of the commitments made, the 75,000 crore rupee commitment on the clean energy side being reaffirmed today by Mukesh Ambani, as well as some timelines now of what will start when, especially on the battery pack facility being operationalized by 2023 and other such plans. What did you make of the announcements that came in?
Thanks, Shireen. So, I think broadly speaking, to begin with, it's good to realize and understand that Reliance is making a play at each of the three sub-transitions that constitute the broader energy transition in India. That's the power sector transition, the mobility transition, as well as the green hydrogen transition. And I think that's important because it's these three transitions which are going to make a net zero India, because today they account for about 70% of emissions. And on that topic of net zero, I just want to point out that we at CEW had conducted a study last year, we've actually written a study, where we actually estimated the investment requirement for India to achieve that net zero target by 2070. And that's something in the order of $10 trillion. So if you average it out over the next 50 years, we're talking about a $200 billion equivalent each year in investment for those three transitions. And by the way, $200 billion is also just about where the market cap of Reliance is today. So we're talking about investment opportunity each year equivalent to Reliance's market cap. Moving to the AGM itself, I thought I could probably divide what I heard and saw into 3 or 4 buckets. First was an upsizing of certain previous commitments. Of course, that 10 gigawatt factory has been upsized to 20. There was also a little bit of a walkthrough of some specific things that happened between the last AGM and this AGM. And specifically, they fell into the categories of acquisitions, they fell into the categories of partnerships, as well as some granularity, in terms of team members, in terms of team strength, which is all very, very important. And finally, I think in terms of where this transition or where this capacity growth is actually going to happen and how it's going to play out, what I would like to say is that given that the announcement, or given that the new energy business was just announced last year, it would have been premature to expect too much detail at this point. It's a reaffirmation of what really was announced last year, but I think it's the years to come that is really going to drive and show us what level and what scale that transformation is going to come at that pace specifically.
Yes, you're right. As Prakash was also pointing out that, the direction is clear, and the commitments made by Reliance have been further built on in this AGM speech today. Of course, as we get closer to those individual timelines, those individual rollout timelines, more clarity will emerge. But Somesh, many thanks for joining us. Just for the benefit of our viewers who are just joining in, to recap some of the other headlines that came in, especially on the energy side. There's been so much talk around green hydrogen, and Reliance, of course, was one of the first few players to make that announcement of foraying into that space. In fact, a timeline now being given by the chairman, Mukesh Ambani, saying that they will commence the transition from grey hydrogen to green hydrogen by 2025. As I pointed out, that's just one of the aspects that was touched upon by Mukesh Ambani in his speech. But on balance, on the energy transition side, your big takeaways?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. As my fellow panelists said, this is definitely a stupendous announcement that was made by Reliance, last year and now reiterated again. So huge investments being planned in the renewable energy, clean energy sectors. And the, 3-4 things that I would like to just highlight is that, all the targets that the country talks about is for a period of 2030. So I'm very glad to see that, we are setting up interim targets. We're talking about 2024, we're talking about 2025, 27. So, we have the timelines and the milestone charted out. We are expanding and then we are doubling capacity. We are setting up battery storage by 2025, so which is very good. The second thing which I really think is that, the timing of the announcement is very, very appropriate. In case of certain equipment like the cells, modules, etc. for solar, we are still dependent on imports, and we saw that some of our neighboring countries took lead on that. But now, in terms of technologies like battery storage or green hydrogen, this is the time to actually make the most of it. This is the time to really get into it and plan the investment at the big scale that has been said. The third thing, which is of very great significance, is that a lot of these technologies are still very costly. For instance, the battery storage cost is still very high. Green hydrogen is also still not viable. But it's only announcements like these and real intent to work towards those. At a scale that has been announced by Reliance and other players as well, that can drive the costs down and bring large-scale investments into this sector. So I think these announcements, given the size at which these have been announced, I think will drive the whole industry, will drive the whole ecosystem, and actually make sure that the costs come down, and also these are embedded into the system very well. And most of these capacities, as we see, are substantial. For instance, the battery storage, probably the country needs for round-the-clock power. It needs about 100 gigawatts of battery storage by 2030, and Reliance is already saying that it will set up 50 gigawatts of that. So a huge capacity which has been planned, and really, and for a fact, we know that since the time the announcements were made last year, there have been substantial steps taken to actually work towards these, bring them to fruition, which is very good. So we see a lot of credibility in the announcements as well. So all in all, a very, very positive move from my side.
Yes, creating that ecosystem, and the hope is that it will eventually in the future drive down costs. That's the expectation. But Prakash, speaking about the future, the chairman also very clearly articulating the sort of line of succession, so to speak, saying very clearly that all our next generation leaders are determined, focused, brimming with new ideas. The next generation will together script a newer and more exciting chapter, that the company has put a governance system in place to ensure that there's accountability at all levels. Of course, Akash and Isha Ambani have already assumed their leadership roles in Jio and Reliance Retail. Anant Ambani has joined the new energy business. Prakash, what did you make of the articulation on what the future leadership roles could look like?
So, Shireen, you remember in the reaction that the market had when Akash Ambani was elevated to the chairmanship for the Jio business, and this was so positive because it takes away the element of doubt in terms of timelines, what's going to happen. I mean, Isha Ambani is already talking about introducing FMCG as a product line to the retail side, and that is dramatic in terms of what it can do to the entire texture of the business from a valuation perspective. If you are just a aggregator and you're selling in a marketplace, it's different. But if you have your own products which also get sold along the way, it becomes dramatically different. So what they're doing, the next gen is actually putting the building blocks which will see the organization grow into a very strong trajectory with the advantage of experience and wisdom from the seniors. I think it couldn't have been better in terms of timing. So I'm very convinced the new energy business, which is starting off the block, having somebody as young as Anant Ambani, it's going to be very well aligned. That's what I'm trying to say. And the beauty about this is that last few years, if you look at the hiring that's happened across Reliance, different verticals in Reliance Industries, it's actually been managers who are in probably the early 40s or even below 40. The whole idea is to give them time to develop into key decision makers for the future and aid this new generation to kind of back those ambitious plans. You need great teamwork, you need great wisdom, you need great energy. I mean, you've got all that if you get this succession plan in place, which has happened. So I think that articulation is the first key stepping stone towards also demerging some of the or spin-offs of some of these businesses globally. Yeah, so I think it gives them time to to drive those businesses, grow along with the businesses themselves, and then represent the organization globally to future investors as and when the time is right. So, absolute perfect timing, and I have no doubts they'll do very well given the kind of and they will have to work a lot harder, of course, given the ambitious plans that have been spelled out. But very exciting.
Yes, Mukesh Ambani there ending his speech saying that he would like, of course, the blessings of all shareholders for not just Isha, Akash and Anant Ambani, but for the 100+ generation next leaders that are now working to take Reliance forward. Prakash Diwan, Gagan Sidhu and Somesh Kumar, many thanks for joining us here to take us through what you made of the announcements that came in from the 45th AGM of Reliance Industries, the articulation and the blueprint of the growth map across different sectors, from retail to geo to the clean energy transition. That's it then on this special broadcast from all of us here. Goodbye. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. The news continues on the other side.